Sports fans, this is Robert with WTP Sports Dudes here live on this Sunday morning, ready to do the WTP Sports Dudes 2026 SEC Conferences Football Preseason Ranking. We're ranking all 16 teams on where we think they are right now before the season starts. We're going from 16 all the way up to 1. I got my man SEC Sean here with me, my buddy. Even though he's an Aggie fan and I'm a Longhorn, we get along like peanut butter and jelly. How you feeling this morning, SEC Sean?
Good morning. Feeling good this morning, ready to get into this one. Been definitely looking forward to this one. This is obviously, you're in my conference. Our teams are both in this conference. I believe this conference was a lot easier to do in my mind than the ACC was. But
your mic is a little bit choppy. Let's also welcome in our man post game sports to the podcast this morning. How you feeling this morning post game?
Man, I feel good, and I'm excited to talk some SEC ball with y'all, man. This is one of the better conferences in America. I'm excited, and I'm really excited to see who you two gentlemen have winning the SEC this year.
Yeah, let's give a shout out to our man Doug out there in the chat with us. He's also a Longhorn fan like I am. Love it, Doug. Appreciate you being here this morning. SEC, Sean, you said that this was an easier one for you to do than the Big 12 and the ACC. Post game, how was it for you doing those other two in comparison to doing the SEC?
Oh, yeah, I think I agree with SEC Sean on that statement. I think the SEC is a lot easier to rank preseason than those other two conferences because there's just so many unknowns in the Big 12 and the ACC. The SEC, I think I got a better handle on which teams are going to be good and which teams are not.
Yeah, I think when we look at all of these teams in this SEC conference, we can see the talent disparity from the top to the bottom. But there's a middle pack, man, and it's like that one was tough for me, trying to figure out who was the teams when you start looking at 4 down to maybe 9, and then maybe from 10 down to 16. So those was a little bit difficult. But let's go ahead and get right into it. We got Arkansas as our number 16 team, ranked last in the preseason predictions. We're going to start with you post game. What's your thoughts on Arkansas, and do you think they're going to finish last?
Yeah, I think Arkansas is a prime candidate to finish last in the SEC. They had a lot of turnover. They bring in a new head coach. It's just not the same program it's been in the latter years. The schedule, they start with North Alabama. They got Utah, Georgia, Tulsa, A&M, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, Missouri, Auburn, South Carolina, Texas, LSU. I can maybe see 2 wins, maybe. And I think Ryan Silverfield, their new coach from Memphis, is bringing a new style to that program, a new offense. We'll see how successful they're able to be in the SEC, but I just don't see it this year. I think it'll be a rebuild for Arkansas.
How about you, SEC?
Yeah. Here's the deal post game. You're exactly right. They are the worst team in the SEC this year. You talked about a lot of turnover post game. How about the number 43 for the amount of incoming transfers? 16 on offense, 27 on defense. Now, let's be realistic. They probably needed 27 transfers on that defense. That defense last year, man, that just wasn't real good. They could not stop anybody. The offense was electric, but the defense was just bad. They've got some players coming in that they did get. They've got Chris Marshall, former Texas A&M wide receiver, out there. Had a rough stretch with some stuff and went to Boise State, I believe, and then transferred into Arkansas. Really hope that kid gets his stuff together. I think he's an electric talent. They've got a tight end out of A&M from a couple years ago, who I expect to be one of the better tight ends in the SEC. The problem's going to be quarterback. You're breaking in a new quarterback. You do have a backup that was over with Memphis with Silverfield, so he's a little bit more in tune with the offense, but it looks like KJ Jackson is going to be the starting quarterback going into the fall. We'll see how that all plays out, but people were, when Silverfield was hired, there was a lot of stuff blowing up on a bunch of different shows that I tune into, and people were not happy. People thought they settled. I think Silverfield is the right man for that job. He understands that region, being from Memphis, recruiting there. I think he's the man for the job. But year one for a head coach with a new system, with that schedule that post game rattled off, they by far got the toughest schedule in the SEC, and it's just going to be a bad year for them. They're just going to have to survive this year and get into next year and hope it gets a little better.
Yeah, I kind of feel sorry for Arkansas, because you would think that, all of these years they've always been in the shadow of Oklahoma. They've always been in the shadow of Texas A&M. They've always been in the shadow of Texas. Now they got all three of those teams in their conference with them again. And Arkansas is one of those places where you would think that they could be better than the bottom of the pack. They got KJ Jackson, who will be competing against the Memphis transfer quarterback A.J. Hill. If I'm Jackson, I feel like, hey, man, I think I did enough last year that you wouldn't have to bring in a guy to compete with me, but I guess that's the best thing to do. I like KJ Jackson. I like the fact that he can throw a little bit and he can use his legs. I'm a big fan of the dual threat quarterback. I feel like they put so much pressure on the defense. And when we watched Jackson come in last year against Texas in that second half, in that fourth quarter, he was able to do a lot against that Texas defense, which gave me hopes that they could be a lot better. But when you lose that many guys and you got to bring that many guys in the transfer portal, it's just going to take a minute for them to gel. So hopefully they'll give this coach enough time to build it the way he built Memphis, and hopefully in the coming years, Arkansas won't be at the bottom of the barrel. But this year, I don't see them winning any games in the SEC, and they probably only win those two games like post-game said. And it will probably be non-conference games. At 15, we got Vanderbilt. Now, the last two seasons under Diego Pavia at the quarterback, this team have been really, really good. What's your thoughts on Vanderbilt in 2026? We're going to start with you, SEC, Sean.
Vanderbilt was everybody's darling the past couple of years in the SEC with Diego Pavia and all the hype that went with that. Well, he's gone. He's a big loss. However, they did, shockingly to I think everybody, at least in this room, go out and get Jared Curtis, who was the best quarterback they've ever had, 5-star, all this. But he's a freshman. He's probably going to start. Diego Pavia had a safety blanket named I can't even remember his first name, Stowers. Yeah. I wanted to say Kendall, but that was his sister, who was the volleyball player at A&M. So it wasn't him. But he was his safety blanket, and that kid was electric at tight end. You've got to replace both of those, which are too hard. I do really like their running back, Shedrick Alexander. I really like that kid. I think he's going to have a great season to take pressure off of Curtis and let him grow. Vanderbilt is the prime team we've spoke about before, where you don't want to play them later in the season because you're going to get the better version of Vanderbilt later in the season. The first few weeks, it's going to be a struggle, I think. We'll see how good of this will put Clark Lee's coaching to the test right here. How good of a coach are you? If you can get that team with all the turnover and everything you lost to 7 wins, Clark Lee's probably going to be getting calls from other schools to move on up.
Yeah, I'm with y'all on Vanderbilt. Clark Lee, I got a lot of faith in. He's a former Notre Dame guy. I think he's done a really good job at the University of Vanderbilt, man. You would think it would be harder to get great recruits in. They have a high academic standard, but they get the number 1 pocket quarterback in the country. And I think he's going to start off slow. You mentioned Stowers, SEC Sean, but this Cole Spence guy at 6'7", in the middle of the field, I think he's going to be his safety blanket this season. And I think as the season progresses, I can see Vanderbilt being a better team. But to start off, I think they're going to be at the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, I'm not really high on Vanderbilt this year. I think they still got some rebuilding to do after you losing Pavia and some of the other talent that they had from last year. But I think in a couple of more years, if Clark Lee decides to stay there, they're going to be one of those teams that's going to be making some noise, and we're going to be excited about Vanderbilt again, like we have been for the past 2 years. I just feel like Vanderbilt has put themselves in a position, especially getting the number 1 pocket quarterback in the nation, of allowing themselves, even though they got the academic piece, and we talked about this yesterday, when you got the academics and you got a good football program and then you're in the SEC, you can beat out teams like Stanford and Cal for some of the better players in the country who are also academically driven. So I think this Vanderbilt team will be in the basement this year, but I think in the up and coming years, if that quarterback stays there, they're going to be a lot better, and we're going to be very, very excited about them in the very near future again. At number 14, we came in with Mississippi State. Give me your thoughts on Mississippi State. I really like their quarterback. And do you think this Mississippi State team can get higher than 14 at the end of the season?
Yeah, I mean, you said Kamario Davis. I think that kid has some talent, and I think if Mississippi State is going to finish a little better than where we project them to be, it's going to be on his back. Now, the thing about Mississippi State last season was their defense was terrible. I mean, they were giving up points left and right, like they were a points charity. So Mississippi State, I don't see having a good year this season, but I think they got some exciting pieces. They got a new defensive coordinator. I think Kamario Taylor could definitely make plays, but is it good enough? Do they have enough to compete with the rest of the teams in the SEC? I don't think so.
Mississippi State is a swing team for me. I have Mississippi State at the bottom of my rankings, but a lot of that's based on their schedule. They have a brutal stretch coming up. There is a stretch where it is bad. For example, they go South Carolina, followed by Missouri, followed by Bama, followed by LSU, followed by Oklahoma, followed by Texas. I really don't see them winning any of those games. But Kamario Taylor is the wild card here. Super uber talented kid, got all the abilities, but it's your first year to start. Yeah, he spot played last year, but I'll comp to Marcel Reed here from A&M. Spot started 1 year, came in and was the full-time starter last year, and had flashes that he could be great, but also had moments that made you want to pull your hair out. And if you're like me, pulling your hair out is not going to end well because it takes a little bit to try to figure out where is the hair to pull it. But they got some transfers. Marquise Johnson from Missouri can help on the outside. Dalen Evans from Texas A&M defensive tackle will help them on the line. And fellas, do you realize who their third string quarterback is listed as? Here's a name. Jaden Rashada. This is their third string quarterback. So it's Mississippi State is a swing team. They can bite some teams. I have Mississippi State winning 5 games this year. And they could possibly get to 6 if they can up and bite somebody. I mean, we've seen it. They almost bit Texas last year, Rob. They had A&M on the ropes at halftime. This team has got some stuff, and really like their running back, too, coming back. Fluff Bothwell, like that kid. Another probably honorable mention, all-name team for me. Anybody named Fluff, you got to give credit to. So I like them. I think they're a swing team. Could they get above 14? I could see them all the way up into like the 11, 12 range, but I don't see any higher than that.
Yeah, this Mississippi State team, I really like their coach. I like their quarterback. He's just got to get a little bit more experience under his belt. I love their running back. When he stays healthy and that run game is going, they are really, really tough. And you already know that when you got to travel to their stadium and play them at home, they're going to give you everything they got. They're going to be out there with them bells, and their fan base is phenomenal when it comes to supporting that team. I feel like that rough stretch that they're going to have is going to be what does them in, and I'm glad that Texas get them last out of those teams that you named, because they usually give Texas one heck of a fight, but maybe by that time they'll be beat up. But I thought that same thing against Florida, too, and Florida pitted on Texas. I feel like Mississippi State is just going to be one of those teams that will always be at the bottom of the barrel in the SEC, just simply because they're just not able to compete as far as recruiting-wise with the rest of those teams in that conference. This is a conference full of name-brand teams, which makes it tough for teams like Vanderbilt, Arkansas, and Mississippi State, the ones that we got at the bottom so far. What's your thoughts on number 13, Kentucky? They came in at 13 on our list. I really like this Kentucky team. I just feel like they don't have enough pieces to get ahead of those other teams. That's why they're at 13. Give me your thoughts on Kentucky, and we're going to start with you, SEC Shaw.
Yeah, Kentucky is I called Mississippi State the wild card. Kentucky is going to be one of the unknowns in this conference this year. I think Kentucky, we all know Kentucky always has a really good defense. They've held some people down. Again, I'm not picking on you, Rob. I'll get to that later, but they gave Texas all they wanted, if not some, and then some. If it wasn't for the dumb decision to punt to Niblet last year, Kentucky probably beats Texas. Mm-hmm. Playing up there in Kroger Field you wouldn't think about it when you think of Kentucky, but that's a tough place to go play. They always get ready for that team up there. I'm real curious with the new coach. I know he's got, obviously plenty of ideas on how to fix Kentucky. Let's put it that way. Kentucky's just that team that I just don't know. I'm not real happy to play them. I am really glad we get them week 3. I'm really glad we get Kentucky early. And it's going to sound like a broken record with some of these teams. You do not want to see this team late, because I think they're going to have figured out who they are and what they are and how to go about it. Kentucky is 13th, but I could see Kentucky breaking the top 10 by the end of the year. Breaking into the top 10. I could see Kentucky having a really, really, really good season this year. Kentucky's one of those teams that they can have a good season, or it can come off the rails real fast and they could be behind Arkansas. We just don't know what we're going to get. But I really like what they've done up there. So we'll see how they move forward.
What you got on Kentucky post game?
Interesting team. I love the hire of Will Stein. They brought in like over 30 transfer portal additions. Kenny Minchie. Now, Kentucky for me is a team that could either be at this spot where we have them at 13, or they can surprise some people and move up in that top 10. Kenny Minchie is a stud at the quarterback position. And a lot of people are going to learn a lot about him this upcoming season. If you remember last year, he was in a battle with CJ Carr for the starting spot at Notre Dame. And I think the difference was between Kenny Minchie and CJ Carr is that it was some politics. You got to give CJ Carr the keys. You just got to, because he's so highly touted. But the fact that Kenny Minchie made that battle so close and probably even outplayed CJ Carr in camp says a lot about that young man's talent, his ability to be a dual threat. He can run, but don't think because he can run he can't pass. And I think that's a huge building block for Will Stein in this Kentucky program. So I'm excited to see them. Out of all the teams, the bottom tier teams in the SEC, this is the one that I'm looking at the most.
I'm kind of high on this Kentucky team, and that I think they're going to be better than what they were last year. I think 2 years ago they had a really good product on the field, and they gave some teams some tough challenges. Last year, I thought they had a good product. Their record just didn't reflect the talent that I think they had on their team. This year, I think they're going to be even more talented than what they were the last 2 years. Like you said, they bring in Minchie, who I think is a really good quarterback. They're going to get They got C.J. Baxter, transfer running back out of Texas, who was the number one or two running back coming out of high school in the country a few years ago, coming back off of an ACL injury. This will give him 2 years removed from that surgery. I think he'll be a lot better. I think this Kentucky team really has a chance to move in the top 10, like you both have said, because I think if they can put it together and they can win their home games, which that is a tough place to play. That stadium doesn't have a bad seat in the house, and Kentucky faithful are going to be in that stadium, which doesn't leave a lot of room for the visitors. I think this Kentucky team can be really, really good. It's a team that I'm going to watch really, really closely because I feel like they could make some noise and be in the top 10 in this conference by year's end. At number 12, we came in with South Carolina. And we know South Carolina has a lot of talent on this team. Their coach is definitely on the hot seat. We're going to start with you post game. Give us your thoughts on South Carolina.
Yeah, you absolutely correct, Rob. I think Frank Beamer has to get the job done this season. Now, what that looks like, maybe top 6 in the SEC. Maybe they surprise some people and go on a nice little run. Their schedule is anytime you in the SEC, your schedule is going to be daunting. I think, they play Alabama. They they at home for Kentucky, at Florida, home for Tennessee, at Oklahoma, home for A&M, home for Georgia, and they end the season at Clemson. Now, the thing about this team, they got to get Lenoris Sellers going. They got to protect him as well. And they went to the portal and tried to, piece up that offensive line to get it up to standard. But I mean, the weapons that Lenoris Sellers is gonna have this year makes me excited about this team. When you talk about a Nitro Tuggle, a really explosive wide receiver that started his career in Georgia, transferred to Purdue and is now at South Carolina, tailor made for Lenore Sellers. And then we don't even need to talk about Big Nick Harbor. That dude is an athletic freak. And I'm also excited to see him as well. So, and then you talk about some defensive pieces South Carolina has. I think they're set up for a little success this season. I would not be surprised if they exceeded expectations. This ball club has a lot of talent.
Yeah, South Carolina. This is pretty low. I think we're all kind of a little waiting. This is a wait and see. Are we going to get 2 years ago Lenora Sellers? Or are we going to get last year Lenora Sellers? How's that offensive line? They lost some pieces off of it. I know they brought some pieces in, but it has to gel. We have, I know they had a defensive lineman come in who was supposed to be really, really good, but then was playing 3-on-3 basketball and blew his knee out. And so they don't even think he's going to play this year, which hurts that defensive front. They do have Dylan Stewart, who's not a bad person to have out there. It was our number 2 edge rusher in the country. We'll see how it plays out. It's a matter of let's see what happens. But post game, you're right. Shane Beamer, if he goes 4-8, I'm not even sure he sees the ends of the season. I'm not sure he's there for the 4-8. I think Shane Beamer has to get it going, and he has to get it going fast. I'm hoping they don't, because we travel to South Carolina in the middle of our rough stretch of the season, which I'll get into when we get up to my team. But I'm hoping they have a down year, because I really do not want to walk into that stadium in a night game on a Saturday night. That stadium is not fun to play in at nighttime. Those people are insane. We'll see. South Carolina is where it starts really flipping for me, where we could see them move one way or the other. So we put them here. We'll see if they can progress from last year.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see what South Carolina is going to do. They got some talent on that team. They got to really fix that defense. You can't allow Dylan Stewart to be getting double teamed because you don't have the rest of the guys in the front. If they could do that and allow Dylan Stewart to get after the quarterback, especially in those third and long distance situations, they can put themselves in a better position to win some games. I think that Lenore Sellers is the key. He has to go out there with ultra confidence. He has weapons around him that he can get the ball to. He has to make things happen. He can't be erratic. He can't be one of those indecisive quarterbacks. He's been in this system for a long time, and I think the future for Shane Beamer relies on Lenore Sellers. You can't have a talented quarterback like this and you don't maximize his talent. They have got to find a way to take advantage of the talent that he has and the talent he has around him so that they can be much better than number 12. Because I feel like this is a team that can definitely get on a run, especially at home. Like you said, SEC Sean, you do not want to go to South Carolina, especially at night, because I've been there and those fans are unbelievable when it comes to rooting for their team. So I think they're going to have to make some things happen so that they can end up higher than 12 where we got them in the preseason ranking. Let's bring our man T1 in on this discussion. How you feeling this morning, T1?
Great on my road back to the city. How y'all fellas doing?
Oh, we're doing well. Good to have some safe travels. We're talking about the SEC conference. We're going to the next team who we got ranked in the preseason at number 11. We got Florida. We're going to start with you, SEC Sean. What do you think about this Florida team? They have a new head coach. They lose their quarterback, DJ Lagway. How do you see things going for this Florida team in 2026?
But before I jump to Florida, let me mention one more thing about South Carolina I forgot to mention. This offense could be dynamic with the new OC out there. He's going to know. He's going to look for Nick Harbor. So we got to watch for that offense to see how it clicks in the first year in that system. But definitely wanted to remember that. Forgot to mention that about the new coordinator. Florida, I think getting away from DJ Lagway was the best thing to happen to Florida. Like DJ Lagway, think he's a great talent, think he needs to stay healthy. I think that is one of those mutual, we need to part ways for both parties to be better. DJ Lagway needed a fresh start, and I think Florida needed a fresh start with the whole new coaching staff and everything coming in. So Summerall is a good coach. We've seen what he's done. Have no doubt he'll get Florida going. Florida's question's quarterback. They've got to get quarterback play. They haven't had it, and they've got weapons on that team. We know there's athletes at Florida. You know, Dallas, Wilson. They've got probably, if not the one of the best running back in the SEC, they've got one of the top three in Ball, Jaden Ball. Florida's always had a defense. We know that. They always get nasty on the defensive line. Secondary could be an issue for Florida, I think. With a whole new system coming in, learning all the different calls on defense and everything. So we'll see how it plays. But Florida is a team that I expect to be in a bowl game this year. I don't think they're good enough yet to challenge for a playoff position. But getting to a bowl game for where Florida's been the past couple years has got to feel like a win for them, in my mind. I know Florida fans don't want to hear that a bowl game is a victory, but for where you've been, it is. And so we're going to see how it happens and plays out. But I think Florida is really intriguing. I think you want to play Florida. You don't want to play Florida at home because I think the fans are going to be super going crazy in the swamp for that team and the direction it's headed. So we'll see how Florida plays out. There's just so many swing teams in the SEC this year that you can't pencil anybody in anywhere with this 9-game schedule, especially. Speaking of schedule, I know Florida's happy to get away from the schedule they've had for the past 2 years because, man, they shifted that to Arkansas. So that's going to be another thing to watch.
100% agree with all that. And the interesting thing about Florida, like you mentioned, SEC, Sean, is that schedule. They might have a schedule to put them where they overachieve this year. I'm looking at the schedule and they play Mississippi, they play Texas, they play Georgia, they play Oklahoma. I think the rest of the games on this schedule are winnable. And of course, it all depends. You get a first-year coach. You know, you got Summerall coming over from Tulane, who he has some success at Tulane, and I really like him. But, I mean, if there's going to be an overachieving team, a team that beats their expected win total and maybe maybe goes 10-2, 9-3, 8-4, somewhere around that range, I think it's going to be Florida. Now, SEC, Sean mentioned this. They got to figure out the quarterback position. Jaden Ball is a dude. I love watching Jaden Ball play. I think he's just super talented, athletic, strong, can catch the ball, can run the ball, whatever you need, Ball can do it. So Florida is an interesting team. I struggled with Florida and Auburn personally when I rank these teams because you just don't know with having a new coach and new system in place. I think their defense is going to ball out. Their offense will be the question, but it won't be the question if they feed Ball.
Yeah, I think this is one of those teams as well, post game, that it was just kind of hard to rank them because you really don't know with a new coach, new quarterback. You know, they got Ball, who was a fantastic running back. We know Dallas Wilson is a number one receiver. They got those pieces, and we know their defensive front is going to be solid as well. We don't know exactly what they're going to look like on the back end, but we do know this, that they're going to come and play hard every week that they play at home in the swamp. And if you got to travel there, they're going to give you a game. And I think they have enough pieces to where they can play ball control offense and really run the ball and control the clock and get that thing in the fourth quarter with an opportunity to win, which might be able to allow them to get higher than where we got them ranked at number 12. I mean, number 11. So I really like this Florida team. I hate the fact that Texas has to play them for a third time in a row. I was hoping that we didn't get that, but we did, and hopefully Texas can prevail because I know they're going to have a chip on their shoulder because of how Florida did them last year, which I believe kept Texas out of the playoffs because they didn't beat Florida, of course. But I like this Florida team. I think they're going to be one of the better teams that's down there around 10, 11, 12. I think they're going to be a really tough team to beat at home. So I'm anxious to see what Florida does this season. I'll be watching that team really, really closely. At number 10, we came in with Missouri. Post-game, give us your thoughts on Missouri. And do you think Missouri is higher than maybe where they should be?
Missouri for me is, man, the last few years they've been getting a lot of hype in the preseason. And I never was really a believer in them, but what Drinkowitz has done with this team, I think he's done a great job for the situation. Missouri being in the SEC, but I really love their running game and how they run the ball. Now the key for Missouri is going to be Ahmad Hardy's health, and I like the depth they got at running back. They got a couple of them at Missouri. Ahmad Hardy is a special player. He's a special running back. And I think that's kind of, I know Missouri has a few players on the defensive side of the ball who can make plays. I think they lost their best pass rusher in the portal, but it's all going to come down to that running scheme and how successful they can be running the ball. Missouri is a team that, like, overall, I don't expect them to contend for a SEC title, especially at the quarterback position. Can they figure that out? They got Austin Simmons now, the transfer from Mississippi. We'll see how that goes, but I think Missouri's success is going to depend on Ahmad Hardy.
Yeah, you're right on, Post. But just some intel I'm hearing, not, take it for what it's worth. I've seen it on other different shows and different things I've read. But it's going to take Ahmad Hardy a little while to get back into form. It was a little more serious than what most people thought. We're not going to get into all the details of it, but people, if you need to know what we're talking about, you can Google it and find out. But it's going to take a little bit. Luckily, they have Jamal Roberts, who's not a slouch either. He's a good running back. Their biggest advantage is their schedule. They have, while you're trying to get Ahmad Hardy back into full game shape, is what I'm mentioning with that. You got Arkansas Pine Bluff. Shout out Arkansas Pine Bluff. Our buddy Doug Jones' daughter plays softball there. Then they get Kansas, which, I mean, come on, it's Kansas. Then they have Troy. Then they get Mississippi State. Those are their first 4 games. So you've got time to work Ahmad Hardy back in before you get into the meat of your SEC schedule. So Jamal Roberts has to carry it. Austin Simmons, I'm not high on Austin Simmons. No disrespect to Trinidad Chambliss, coming out of a Division II Ferris State and wins the job over this highly regarded Austin Simmons. Austin Simmons has been injured too. So I'm not sold on him. I think Missouri would have been better off going with their sophomore Zollers, Matt Zollers, who played last year when Probula went down. But that's just my, again, I'm not Eli Drinkowitz. So, take that for what it's worth. But Missouri's running game has to be their calling card. And what are you going to get from that defense? That defense looked good in flashes last year, and then they looked like they were lost. So we'll see what happens. You mentioned playing whoever y'all were playing. I forget who it was. Who we just talked about. Florida 3 years in a row, right, Rob? I don't understand the scheduling as to why we have to go to Columbia, Missouri, and LSU both back-to-back years. But whatever. I mean, we'll deal with what we got. So we'll see what happens with it. I hope Ahmad Hardy makes a full recovery and comes back because I think he's really fun to watch, especially when he's not playing your team. But that defense has to get it. And this is my second head coach on a hot seat in the SEC. If he doesn't get them into the top 6 or whatever of the SEC, I think Drinkowitz is going to be some talk about it's time to move on.
Yeah, it's probably going to be some talk about him moving on, but I still think he's a really good coach. That somebody will grab him as soon as he gets his firing papers. Somebody's going to grab him up. This Missouri team, for me, the thing I like about Missouri is the fact that we know they're going to run the football. And whenever you got a defense that's not as good, a good run game helps a not so good defense every time. And I feel like this is a Missouri team that's going to be able to run the football and allow a not so good defense to stay rested and to stay as fresh as possible. The thing for Missouri is they're going to have to find a way to help Austin Simmons be able to complete some passes down the field, to be able to keep defenses playing honest so that they don't load that box up to stop that run game. And if they're able to do that, then I think Missouri can be one of those teams that could possibly get to 7 or 8 in this conference at the end of it. But I really don't think Missouri is going to be that great of a football team. But I am anxious to see what Ahmad Hardy does when he comes back. Of course, we got prayers for him, and we hope that he has the kind of recovery that it takes to allow him to be 100% healthy and get an opportunity to go to the next level and play in the NFL. At number 9, we come in with Auburn. And we're going to start with you, SEC Sean, because this Auburn team for the last couple of years has been a team that we haven't been able to really figure out. Really good defensively, but haven't been able to do anything offensively. They run the football a whole lot, and they run the football really well. How do you see Auburn faring this year in 2026?
Exactly what you said. Good on defense. What are we doing on offense? New coach, Golish. Quarterback came with him, Byron Brown. Like him, think he's good. Not sure his game's going to translate to the SEC where he was able to, and the play wasn't there, break down and scramble. Now, he's a bigger body quarterback, so he might. But he's going to be hit a lot harder than he was hit in the SEC. So we'll see how he can hold up. Y'all, they have like 10 transfers on offense that are all expected to start. Most of them came with Golish. Let's be fair about that. When you have a new coaching staff, that happens. Auburn had problems last year protecting the quarterback. I mean, their quarterback was sacked. It looked like David Carr from the Houston Texans back there from a couple years ago, getting just sacked on every other play. I think Oklahoma sacked him 11 times. A&M sacked him like 8 or 9. And they've got 5 new offensive linemen. Now, they're all transfers, and a lot of them came with Golish. But, I mean, 5 new guys on the offensive line for a team that couldn't protect the quarterback. We're going to see they lost some receivers in the portal. Obviously, the most notable, Cam Coleman. They haven't had a good offense in years. But I think their defense is good enough to let them grow into what they're going to be. So I've got Arkansas decently high. I think they're going to really, really surprise some teams this year and make a run. Not necessarily, obviously college football playoff, but Arkansas, I believe, will be in a bowl this year, which much like Florida would be a win for that program based on where they've been.
Yeah. SEC Sean is saying Auburn, not Arkansas.
Yeah, I got my rankings up and I was looking at the wrong A.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's your take post game?
I disagree a little bit with SEC Shine. I think Golish, Byron Brown, and a lot of those players coming over and transferring to Auburn, I think the transition is going to be a little smoother, especially on the offensive line. Now they got some offensive linemen transferred from other places, so I agree with that. It's going to take some time to gel, but I think with them coming over with from South Florida and that system they had, and them getting the quarterback and a few of those receivers that Byron Brown had over there, I think the transition is going to be a little smoother than people expect. I think Byron Brown is going to be a dude. I think he's going to be a monster in the SEC. I really do. I really like his game. His physicality, his ability to make plays is going to be awesome. Auburn has to be solid on defense if this is going to work as well. So that's what I'm looking at when it comes to Auburn. I can see this team being one of those teams we didn't expect to be where they were when we're at the end of the season and we're looking at who's who and then looking at the standings as well. I like this Auburn team a lot, fellas. I think Byron Brown is a dude. I think they're going to be a little bit better than 9.
Yeah, I know we got Auburn at 9, but I'm telling you right now, I think they could get somewhere around 6, even 5, because this team last year defensively was ultra physical. If you look at that South Florida team last year, that team was incredibly physical. So we know the coaching style that the new coach that they got Goldens, we know that he loves for it to be physical. And I think if you already come into an Auburn team who understands the physicality of the SEC and you couple that with a coach that knows that that's how he loves to play, I think this Auburn team has an opportunity to out physical the next few teams that we're going to talk about. And I think they could get up there around 5 or 6 at the end of the season because they were in some really close games last year and they didn't have any offense whatsoever outside of a run game. And if this year, if they could get a pass game going with Byron Brown, his ability to use his legs, a dual threat guy, along with an already good running game, I think Auburn can be really good in the SEC. Do I see them going to the college football playoffs? Absolutely not. But I think that they can be much better than the next few teams that we're going to play, that they're going to we're going to talk about if they can get it all together. I really like that Auburn team.
I got to show my man Jeremiah Cobb some love. I think he's going to be in a really good position rushing the ball with Byron Brown being his quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. At number 8, we're going with Tennessee, the Tennessee Vols at number 8. Now, I think when you think about that brand, Tennessee, you don't see them in the middle of the pack of the SEC, but we got them at number 8. What's your thoughts on them? And we're going to start with you post game.
Yeah, Tennessee is another one of those wild card teams that SEC Sean has been talking about today. I think last year their quarterback play surprised me, having the transfer in there and him being able to get the ball down the field. They had a lot of receivers, but I mean, their running game is going to be key with Deshaun Bishop. Deshaun Bishop is a dude, and I don't think a lot of people talk about him much. But anytime you put up over 1,000 yards and 16 touchdowns, that you know you're doing something right. But I think the quarterback position is going to be key. I think if they would have granted, man, I forget the quarterback from last year's name. Forgive me, y'all. But if they would have granted him another year, I think Tennessee would have been higher on this list. For me personally, at least. But they going with George McIntyre. At least that's what it's looking like right now. Last year, they probably would have been a better team if their DBs were healthy. They had a lot of injuries as far as the defensive backs go. So we'll see how they do. I don't think they're going to get close to winning the SEC title or being a playoff team, but I think this is going to be a team that can surprise some people and beat some teams that they're not favored to beat if they can figure out that quarterback position.
Yeah, I'd love to flip this game on the schedule with your Longhorns, Rob. If you'd will it, we could make a trade if you like. I'll figure something out. I would like to play Tennessee when y'all are playing them, not when we're playing them. Y'all get them first in the SEC. Everything is McIntyre is listed as the starter. I don't believe that. I believe Brandon Faison is going to be the starter. I think Heupel can build a quarterback. He knows. I think, yeah, for sure, Post, you're right. If Aguilar would have gotten an extra year, I think Tennessee's way up this list. Mm-hmm. But they lost. They'll have receivers there, but they lost some receivers to the NFL too. So, freshman quarterback should have a pretty good offensive line. Had a pretty good one last year. Bishop, I mean, lean on him while you're getting the quarterback going. Pretty much the same thing Florida. I said about Florida. You got to lean on the running game till you get your quarterback rolling. Defense is going to be where it's at. They're going to be okay on defense. I think it's going to take another year under the new regime that's coming in. I believe it's Jim Knowles took over the DC position there. My understanding is it takes about 2 years to get his system down. So we'll see how that plays out. But Tennessee is very, very intriguing. It's going to depend on what do they get from the quarterback. We know what Bishop can bring. We like their tight end and Ethan Davis. I really like him a lot. So we'll see how he plays out. But to me, it's going to be what do you get from the quarterback position, and can that defense hold up? Because I know they lost some back end of that defense to the NFL too, and one of their guys they were looking to start this year transferred to A&M. So we're going to see how the back end holds up.
Yeah, hopefully Jim Knowles can get this defense playing better than what they played last year. And I know it takes a couple of years to get his system down. But if they can play a little bit better defense, I think that might give Josh Heupel a little bit more breathing room, because I think he could possibly be one of those coaches on the hot seat as well. Because Tennessee, even though they made the college football playoffs 2 years ago, they haven't really played up to Tennessee standard when you think about the Tennessee football program. I like what they have there. I agree that if Aguilar was their quarterback, we would have them way higher up on our ranking, much higher than number 8 being in the middle. I just really feel like there's a lot of questions that have not been answered yet for this team. I'm glad Texas get them early in the season. It gives Texas a better opportunity to probably beat Tennessee. Even though it's in Knoxville, I might make that trip. I ain't 100% sure yet. But I really think that this Tennessee team in a couple of years, if they can keep Heupel and if they can keep Jim Knowles, they're going to turn the corner, man. And we're going to start talking about them being one of the top 3 teams in this conference, but especially the way we see Alabama starting to fall. And then with that, we come in at number 7 with the Alabama Crimson Tide. What's your thoughts on them? We'll start with you, SEC Sean. And do you feel like their coach could possibly be another SEC coach on the hot seat?
That's what we call a lead-in, because you're exactly right. The problem is, I think he'd be on the hot seat with the fans, but he ain't going nowhere. Yeah. They just signed him to a huge extension, which jumped his buyout up to like $72 million. They're not paying the buyout. They're just going to ride with it. So Paul Feinbaum will explode. That will be some of the funniest stuff to listen to if Bama has a bad year. It's going to be hilarious. We all know that's one Take Zay's favorite show. So Bama's got some dudes on defense. Janze Perkins, or Pierre, I think is his name. Pierre. And then Ray Hubbard at strong safety. That dude is nasty. He's going to be something else. Offense is where my questions come in. Some things you're seeing are going to say Austin Mack. I don't think Bama can play Austin Mack. I think the fan base and everybody wants Keelan Russell to get the shot. You know, this kid was super talented, high recruit, super athletic. I think that's what the fans want to see. Austin Mack's been there. So is Russell, of course, last year. But I just think it's Russell. You got to go with Russell when you're kind of not knowing. So what are you going to get from Russell or Mack, whoever starts? And let's be real, Ryan Coleman Williams needs to bounce back into form from what he was. He had a down year last year. There was some drops he had that made you scratch your head, where he was making insane catches as a freshman, passes that were hitting him right in his hands. He was just dropping last year. So he's got to bounce back. And Alabama, when you think Alabama, you think run the ball. They've got to find a running game over there. It's been bad. I like their Daniel Hill. I think he's got the chance. But like a couple other teams we've mentioned, their offensive line was not good last year. So we're going to see what we get from Bama. To me, when was the last time you think Bama was rated 7th in this conference? That tells you how far it's kind of fallen down. And we're going to see what DeBoer can do this year, because, man, it's going to get a lot of clamoring if it goes bad this year.
Yeah, man. I mean, off the barrel, the hire of Kalen DeBoer was a little funny style to me, because him coming from Washington to Alabama, I don't know, it just didn't feel right to me. But he just, as SEC Sean just mentioned, he did get a huge extension. They did make the playoffs last year, whether you agree with them making it or not. So the problem is going to be who's going to start at quarterback. And whoever they do start, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't have a lot of starting experience. The key for Alabama is going to be getting back to running the ball. And I don't even know if they do that, because I'm not sure if DeBoer is that type of coach. Ryan Coleman Williams has to rebound, has to get back to himself. He's one of the most talented receivers in the country. He has to be a dude this year for Alabama to be successful. That defense has to get a little better. I know they lost a lot of players on that defensive line to the transfer portal. So we'll see if anybody steps up there. But I agree with SEC. The fans are going to turn on DeBoer before the administration does, unless he just goes out there and wins 2 or 3 games.
Yeah, for me, Alabama just has not been the Alabama of old that has been super ultra physical, man. And I think that's a stigma that's on Kellen DeBoer. His teams at Washington were not physical. His team at Alabama has not been physical, and they've gotten away from that physicality that we know. In order to survive in the SEC, you have to be able to be physical. You got to be able to run the football. You got to be able to stop the run. And those are 2 components that this team has not really been able to do. And I think if Alabama is going to get back to the Alabama of old, they got to increase their physicality. I hope that Keelan Russell wins that starting position, because you want a dual threat guy there. And you know, I've already said it a million times, the dual threat quarterback that can actually make some throws is dangerous. Ryan Coleman Williams, like you both have said, he has got to step up. But they got to understand who Ryan Coleman Williams is. He is not a guy that you can put in the slot and have him taking that kind of abuse. You got to put this guy on the outside and hunt one-on-one matchups so that he can get in the open field and make his moves and do things like that. You can't expect that guy to, to go in the trenches and catch passes across the middle against linebackers and strong safeties, man. He's going to get his block knocked off. I think Kellen DeBoer has got to get this thing turned around because the Alabama fans already want his head. Eventually, the administration going to want his head. Even though he made the college football playoffs last year, they were not a good team last year. And for me, I felt like they should not have made it only because they weren't playing good football at that time of the season. They were not looking good. But Alabama has an opportunity this year to fix some things, and I hope that they do. At number 6, we got Mississippi. We're going to start with you post game. Give us your thoughts on Mississippi, and can they duplicate what they did last season?
I don't know, Rob. I know they got great players. I know, Trinidad Chambliss just, man, he wows me. He wowed me all last year, bro. I love Trinidad Chambliss. The thing for me, now they go to Golden, who's more of a defensive minded coach, and he had some success last year when he replaced Kiffin for that playoff run. But now this is his team, 100%. They lose Lane Kiffin to LSU. They lose Charlie Weiss Jr. to LSU. I know those guys are super talented at Mississippi, but I just, you got to account for losing offensive minds like that, bro. At least 1 year after 1 year. Maybe in 2 or 3 years, everything is what it needs to be. But I just think there's going to be some kind of effect with losing brilliant offensive minds like that. I do like Mississippi, though. I do think they'll be a major player in the SEC. 6-5-4 in the rankings, I'm fine with. We'll see how good Trinidad Chambliss really is, bro, because like I said, they don't have Kiffin. They don't have Charlie Weiss Jr. I definitely think they'll be able to run the ball. Defense should be good, but they did lose a couple players off that defense that made that run in the playoffs last year. So this is probably the most interesting team in the SEC because you with all those factors I just mentioned, you want to see it play out. But I think they're going to be good. I think they're going to be one of the better teams in the SEC. Now, if you telling me they had Kiffin and Weiss still, I would have them one. That's how much I think of those offensive minds.
Yeah, that's the key right there. Post game, losing Charlie Weiss. What are you going to get? We know the talent is there. Kewan Lacey. I mean, we've got him top 3 running back, probably top 5 in the country. We've got Trinidad Chambliss. We saw what he can do. They lost some receivers on offense too. Now, they've brought in some guys, most notably Jonte Cook, who transferred in from Syracuse. And he had decent numbers at the beginning of the year until, of course, Syracuse's quarterback went down. And then his numbers fell off. But Jonte Cook, former Longhorn, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, never has really lived up to his potential. Super highly recruited receiver, just hasn't lived up to it. Defense is going to be the question. I know Golding is a defensive coach, but you lost some super key players off of there. But I think the offense is the biggest question to me is how do they call plays without Weiss there? Who steps up at receiver? Because you can't just turn the ball and hand it off or pitch it to Lacey and let Chambliss run around all the time. That's just not going to work. Eventually, that's going to get shut down. So one of these receivers has to step up, and that's going to be the key to me to take some pressure off. I think they're really good. I do not expect Mississippi to be in the playoff this year. I think they can finish about somewhere where we've got them in the SEC. We'll see how that plays out, but I don't see Mississippi contending for any kind of playoff spot this year.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Jonte Cook. I was wondering where he ended up at because I know that he traveled to a couple of different places. He landed in a really good landing spot in Mississippi. Syracuse was a good landing spot for him too because we know they're going to throw that football. I really hope that Jonte Cook, because he was one of the top wide receivers coming out the year he came out maybe 4 or 5 years ago. He had his ups and downs at Texas with some drops that eventually, got him benched and got him in the transfer portal. But I think if he got his mental together, he could be a really, really good wide receiver for Trinidad Chambliss. I think the run game is going to be solid. I just don't know if they're going to be able to stop teams or play as good as defense as they did the previous year. That might be their kryptonite. Their defense might not be able to do as much. And I don't know if Trinidad Chambliss is going to be able to do as much as he did without Lane Kiffin and Weiss. So hopefully this Mississippi team can land right around where we got them at, maybe even 5. But I think that's about as good as I can see them doing with the pieces that they lost, the coaches that they lost, and the fact that we don't know if Trinidad Chambliss is going to be as good as he was last year. Now, we know Keywan Lacey going to ball out, but we don't know if the quarterback is going to do as well as he did last year, and he was phenomenal last year. At number 5, we came in with Oklahoma. Oklahoma was a little tough for me to decide. Defensively, they're going to be really, really good again. Offensively, I don't know if they fixed that run game. We're going to start with you, SEC Sean. What's your thoughts on Oklahoma?
Yeah, their defense is going to their defense is going to be good. I don't know that their defense is going to be last year good. That was an amazing defense last year. I do expect them to be good. I'm not going to lie. They are going to be a good defense, a really good defense. I don't think they're going to be last year's defense. Oklahoma has to figure it out. They're all the hype around Mateer. I think he's a good quarterback. I don't know about all the hype he gets, but I think he's good. I get he was injured last year too. They've got to. They last year they couldn't run the ball. They could barely pass the ball. They've got to lead now. A lot of that. Oklahoma's offensive line might have been second worst in the SEC behind Auburn last year. It was bad. If that doesn't get fixed, it's not going to matter. Oklahoma will go 8-4 this year if that offensive line plays like they did last year. I just don't know that they have the weaponry on offense. I like some of what they've got on offense. I like some of the players. I just don't know if they're going to have the consistency they need to do what they need to do. Let me pull up their roster real quick. I mean, they did get, obviously they have Satania back, who I like. I like him a lot. Mm-hmm. They got your favorite player from the University of Texas, Parker Livingstone, transferred to your most hated rival. So that gives them another weapon. But, I mean, Xavier Robinson running back, Tory Blaylock. I mean, who's going to step up? I just don't know. Oklahoma's offense is going to have to do something, or that defense is going to get exposed eventually because they're going to be on the field so much. So we'll see what happens with them. But I think defense will be good. Offense is the huge question mark. Question for both. You can both answer this real quick when you're done with your analysis. If Oklahoma goes 8-4, 7-5, is Venables given another year, or does the seat get too hot for him?
Good question. I mean, Brent Venables, man, it's he has to do something this year in my mind. The SEC shine broke it down perfect. I think Oklahoma is going to be really good on defense. I'm not sure if it'll be last year's defense, but they got some dudes in on that defense with the Bowen brothers. I think really highly of them. The key on offense is going to be running the ball. Can they run the ball, take some pressure off John Mateer? Because I think they're going to rely on Mateer and his ability to run the ball way too much, and he'll get injured again, and then your season goes where. I love Parker Livingstone. Can you imagine if he would have stayed at Texas with the receivers they got? Oh my goodness. Satania, they get Trell Harrison, another transfer. So they got some pieces. They just got to put it all together on offense. But they're not going anywhere if they're not going to be able to run the ball again this year. So they got to be able to run the ball. They can't run Mateer into the ground. He's not going to make it through the season in that SEC. So Brent Venables, they're going to be a solid to great defense or anywhere in between. They got to be able to run the ball and take some pressure off John Mateer if they're going to be successful this year. But I don't think Oklahoma is going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, for me, Oklahoma, their line will be another year older, but they're still not going to be very good. They're not going to be able to run the football outside of Mateer and his runs. And like you said, post game, they can't afford to run this guy too much. Otherwise, he's going to get banged up. He hasn't really even though he was in the Heisman Trophy running early in the season, he was the leader. He really hasn't been that great of a quarterback when you put his whole season together. Now, granted, he hurt his thumb last year, and the year before he was at Washington State. I just don't think that you can count on John Mateer to lead your team to the college football playoffs. We know defensively is how they got there last year. Their defense is going to be good again this year. I don't know if it's going to be as good as it was last year, but at the same time, I think that if they offensively can't control the clock long enough to give that defense enough rest, eventually that defense will start to falter as well. I got Oklahoma at 5, and we got them at 5. I think simply because defensively, we know they're going to be good. But offensively, without that run game, man, that's the biggest question mark for me. And I don't think it's going to be much better than it was last year. And eventually, in the second half, teams are going to start to pull ahead of Oklahoma. And if they go 8-4, 7-5, it might be time to part ways with Brent Venables, in my opinion. At number 4, we come in with LSU, a team that got a new head coach who we think is a really, really brilliant quarterback coach and a really brilliant offensive mind. We got LSU at 4. They haven't fared so well in the past couple of years. What do y'all think about LSU at number 4? And we're going to start with you post game.
Yeah, excitement. If I'm a LSU fan, I'm excited. I'm excited to be done with the Brian Kelly era. I'm excited to bring in, as we just talked about, Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr. Man, this could be a really explosive offense, man. It could be potentially the best offense in the SEC. Potentially. There are some really good offenses, no doubt about it. But man, when you think about some of the players they got, Sam Levitt, we talked about Trey Green the other day, Winston Watkins, Jackson Harris, Jace Brown. This offense could be must-see TV. But on the other hand, it could take a little time to gel for LSU. I mean, their defense should be good too. You talk about Whit Weeks, one of the best linebackers in the country. So the only thing I think about when I think about LSU, is not if, it's when. When are they going to be a great program? Is it this year or is it next year? Do they start slow and end fast? I don't know. But I love the building blocks Lane Kiffin has in Baton Rouge. I love the players. I love his coaching staff. I think LSU is going to be a contender for that SEC championship game this year. And I think, unless it all depends on how fast they gel. Offensive line, quarterback, receivers. Is Sam Levitt healthy? I haven't even heard any updates on Sam Levitt. Is he going to be ready for fall camp or whatever the case may be? But LSU could be a really scary team, man. And if they gel, let me be clear, if they gel, they could be competing for the SEC championship. Or this may be the case where it may take we're excited about the names and the players that they were able to get on campus, but does it take a year to gel and kind of figure everything out and put everything in place? That's yet to be seen. But I love the talent LSU has, and I love their coaching staff as far as the offense goes.
LSU. Man, Trey Green is that dude. Let's just go ahead and start it right there. Lane Kiffin's going to do everything in his power to get that dude the ball. Think a couple years back with Florida and Pitts. Just throw it up, let him go get it. He's never covered. What do you get from everybody else is the question mark. Sam Levitt, I'm hearing post-game that he should be ready to roll by fall camp, but I've mentioned it numerous times. That foot injury he has is one that is real easy to re-aggravate, and if it comes back, that's going to tank the season. I don't like what they have behind him at quarterback at all. The running back, I really like Barry. He was a freshman last year. I really like that guy. But that offensive line, it's another that this was a theme last year with some of these teams in the SEC was offensive line play. It was not good. So that has to fix right there. And I know they got the big number one, like offensive lineman Seaton from Colorado, I believe. So that helps, but that's one player out of 5. And if it gets to the point that line is not that good, they're going to have to figure out how to keep a tight end in, which you're going to have to put another tight end on the field because you're not leaving Trey Green in the block. That just eliminates your offense. So I think it does take a year to gel. This is another team. I had mentioned earlier, Rob, I'd like to switch schedules with you and play Tennessee as early as y'all had them, but I'd also not want to switch this game with you because we get them week 4. So I like where we got them. I'm curious what that defense can do. We know LSU has normally had a lot of DBs back there. I'm curious what that defense is going to do. You mentioned Whit Weeks, phenomenal, if he can stay healthy. Prince Will, that's what we're going to call him, transferred down there with him. So we're going to see how it plays out. The back end is a little bit sketchy to me this year, believe it or not, but they're kind of young. Sophomores and juniors, I say young, but here lately. We're going to see what Lane Kiffin can do. I think it's going to take another year, though. I think they will start slow. You'll find out about LSU within the first 4 weeks of the season when they've got Clemson and A&M. And by the way, before they play A&M, they travel to Ole Miss, which ought to be real fun. So we're going to find out about them early. They could be 1-3. And at that point, how does LSU react? We've seen LSU teams struggle, and it's almost like they just give up on the season and try to start working for next. And does that happen? Or do they say we can get better and then go from there? But I see LSU as 4th or 5th in this conference.
Yeah, I will say this, and 2 great takes from both of you on LSU. I will say this, though, the SEC scheduling guys, they gave LSU a lot of favor, man. I mean, they go They go to Mississippi and they do go to Tennessee. But man, listen, they get Clemson at home. They get Alabama at home. They get Texas at home. And they get Texas A&M at home. Come on, man. The scheduling gods did them a real favor. But like you said, SEC, Sean, if they start this thing ugly, you know how they've been the last couple of years. They packed that thing up, man, and they are not ready to play no football. I don't think Lane Kiffin is going to let that happen. But the thing for me is Sam Levitt. Is Sam Levitt going to be able to produce the way a Lane Kiffin quarterback needs to produce? If he can, this LSU team can be dangerous. If not, they're going to have troubles. And I can see them falling from 4 down to maybe 7 or 8. But we'll have to see how this season goes. At number 3, we got the Texas A&M Aggies, SEC Sean's dudes. We're going to start with you post-game. Then we'll come to me and we'll let SEC Sean take the last bit of that. Let's start with you. What's your thoughts on Texas A&M?
Yeah, man, I like this team. Last year, I liked this team. I was impressed with Texas A&M last year. Regardless of the thumbnail, I love their coach. I think he's the right man for the job. I think he's got Texas A&M pointing in the right direction. The key for Texas A&M to me is going to be Marcel Reed and his progression as a quarterback, not just a playmaker, a guy who can use his legs, but a guy who can, be accurate and get the ball downfield and not commit turnovers. If he can do that with their wide receiver core, I think Texas A&M could really be in play to win, not only play for it, but win the SEC championship this year. I really do. I think, when you talk about their style of play, they're going to be solid on defense. They're going to make plays on defense. Now, I'm not saying they don't have some areas they got to clean up, but you just trust their coach and getting that defense back together and getting it to a point where they can compete for a SEC title. But to me, it's all going to come down to Marcel Reed. I love Marcel Reed's game. I want to see him progress. I believe in him. I think he has a chance to be, one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC, along with Manning and Trinidad and a few others. But Texas A&M, I want to see these. This is one of the preseason teams I'm really want to see week 1, week 2, because I want to see the progress on Marcel Reed.
Yeah, for me, I'm really high on this Texas A&M team. I really like Marcel Reed. I really like Mario Craver, and I know I've said it plenty of times. I think this is going to be one of the best quarterback wide receiver connections in the SEC this year. I really like the fact that Elko is starting to get the defensive guys that he wants in his system, bigger linebackers that fit the bill. He's always had a pretty decent defensive line. He's always had some good, decent edge rushers. His defensive backs are starting to round into shape, the kind that he likes to have on his team. Offensive line, I'm not 100% sure what they're going to look like, but if they can hold up and they can run the football and they can allow Marcel Reed to do a little bit of play action pass, a little bit of RPO, we can really see this Texas A&M offense really explode. They were scoring a lot of points last year and quickly. I think we're going to see a lot more of that this year. I'm really high on this Texas A&M team, and I think they're going to definitely be one of the top 3 teams in the conference. What's your take, SEC, Sean?
Well, in the words of the great Cody Johnson, who played a concert at Nationwide Arena last night, welcome to the show, which is what we're going to put on. This team has lots of questions. Seriously, guys. Offensive line, defensive line are my 2 biggest questions. dropping 4 guys into the NFL draft off an offensive line. We saw a numerous. Y'all had it last year, Rob, replacing 4 starters. It doesn't go well early. We have tons of talent that we've recruited from the high school ranks there. Lamont Rogers being one. We brought in 4 starting offensive linemen from SEC teams. If they gel, which I trust they will. Adam Cushing, I love him as an offensive line coach. Post, you mentioned Marcel Reed. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on him. We all kind of know what we got there. Rob, you mentioned the receiving room. We know they're going to be good. Running backs. Somebody has to step up. Reuben Owens needs to live up to his potential. Him and Terry Bussey both need to do what they were projected out of high school, which goes to show don't always bank on stars being for great players. Those have to step up. Defensive, like I said, defensive line. I think our secondary is going to be phenomenal. Des Ricks is back. Dalton Brooks is back. Marcus Ratcliffe is back. You've got Brandon Arrington, super freshman, who's amazing during the spring game. But you've also got the transfer from Florida, Ricky Wright, I think, has transferred in to add some depth. You've got Tyreek or Bird out of Colorado, transferred in at the safety for some extra depth. You got Ray Coney at the linebacker. I like what Elko is doing. I believe Elko is the answer that A&M needed to finally get us to where we needed to be. We have to finish stronger. Going 11-0, losing to Texas, losing to Miami, it's a bitter taste, especially Miami at home, and a sloppy game for both teams. Let's be realistic. Defensive struggle. I think this is year 3 under Tommy Moffitt, one of the most legendary strength and conditioning coaches the SEC has ever seen. Was there when LSU was on all their runs. We'll see how it plays out. I think this is the year we see it take hold, but that's kind of my easy take on A&M. I know coming up as we get closer to the season, we'll do individual team previews and we'll get a little more in depth. But that's where I'm at with A&M right here.
At number 2, we come in with Texas, and we'll start with you, SEC Sean. What's your thoughts on the Texas Longhorns?
Uber talented. One of the most talented teams in the nation on paper. They have to put it together. You can't have these, as my dad used to say, these brain farts against teams like Florida. You can't walk in and think I'm better than Kentucky and Mississippi State, and you're just going to win because the name on the jersey says Texas. They have to put it together. This is one of the most uber talented teams. We've seen Cam Coleman, Arch Manning, Hollywood Smothers. I mean, come on, let's just go. Your offensive line has to get better, Rob. Same with A&M. We have to see what we got. Defense, I don't really. Maybe the back end could be a few questions with Muschamp's new system. But, I mean, you have the best edge rusher, maybe one of the best, if not the best pound-for-pound player in all of college football, Colin Simmons. Turn him loose, let him do what he does, and we'll see from there. I expect Texas to fully be in the college football playoff and probably make a run. Wouldn't surprise me if we saw an Ohio State-Texas rematch in the national championship game at all.
Yeah, uber talented is definitely what you think about when you see this Texas team. It's loaded like a Las Vegas burrito. But, I mean, Cam Coleman, Ryan Wingo, Emmett Mosley, that's a hell of a receiving core to have. And I think those guys are going to make a lot of plays. But the key for me in this Texas offense is going to be the running game, because you think about this. You got Hollywood Smothers and Raleek Brown, and Arch Manning has wheels. So that's going to be a really difficult running attack to stop and game plan for. And then if you get too greedy and come up to the line of scrimmage, Cam Coleman can pop you. Ryan Wingo can pop you. They got playmakers everywhere. Now as we talked about last season going in, the one reservation I had for your Longhorns, Rob, was that offensive line. I agree with SEC Sean. They gotta be better. They gotta be improved, and it's looking like they are going to be. But we're going to have to see it play out on the field. The defense is going to be spectacular. I think if there's any holes, it might be the secondary, but up front, man, y'all front seven is going to be amazing. And I really like Rasheem Biles, the transfer from Pittsburgh. That's a guy everybody was saying was going to go to Ohio State, but he picks Texas. And then Colin Simmons, that I fully expect Colin Simmons to have the type of season to where he's a top 3 NFL draft pick. Texas Longhorns, I would not be surprised if they won the conference regular season and the SEC championship game.
Yeah, for me, Texas has probably got the best roster that they've had in the past 15 years. And right now, Steve Sarkisian has depth on top of depth on top of depth that he's going to have to be able to take Texas to the next level. This cannot be like many people say about Texas. Yeah, they got all these pieces and they got all this hype, but then they don't end the prize. They don't win the prize at the end. They have got to dethrone Georgia this year and be the SEC champs, whether it be regular season or no. It gotta be the SEC championship game. They got to dethrone Georgia. I think they have the team that can do that. I feel like offensively, he has every piece that he needs to have a really, really good offensive season. I think defensively, if Will Muschamp and the defensive back coach, the safety coach can mesh that front end with the back end, Texas can be really good defensively. I think the defensive secondary is the biggest question mark for me too. I just don't know if those guys are going to pick up on Muschamp's system fast enough for them to be able to, to do the things they need to do. By season's end, though, they're going to be really, really good. So hopefully Texas can turn the corner and dethrone Georgia as the best team in the SEC. And with that being said, Georgia, we have them ranked number 1 preseason in the SEC. We'll start with you post game. Give us your thoughts on Georgia.
Now, if there's one team who can knock Texas off and keep them from realizing their highest potential in winning the SEC, it's Georgia. And, head coach Kirby Smart. This is like, man, they returned so many guys, so many key players. Nate Frazier is going to be a monster, as we all know. He's one of the better running backs in the SEC. I fully expect Gunnar Stockton to take a step forward and be a really good quarterback. Not necessarily your traditional drop back, make plays in a pocket quarterback, but this is a guy who can make plays, using his legs, extending passing plays, so and things of that nature. But the player on offense that I'm going to highlight is Isaiah Canyon, the transfer from Georgia Tech. I know he didn't wow a lot of people with his numbers, only 480 yards and 4 touchdowns, but this guy is uber talented, as SEC Sean likes to say. And he's a big body wide receiver, 6'4", 205, and I think he's going to have a lot of opportunities to make plays in this Georgia offense. We all know that Georgia wants to run the ball, but I think getting Isaiah Canyon is going to help that offense out a lot, getting downfield and especially in the red zone if they're not running the ball in for a touchdown. Defense, we all know Kirby Smart. You can't even come to Georgia if you're not a good defender. So I expect the defense to be up to par. I definitely think that Texas is still this. I give the slight lean to Texas as far as winning the SEC title, but Georgia is right there. They're right there with Texas, and I haven't looked at their schedule yet, but I've heard rumblings of an undefeated season for Georgia, so that's going to be really exciting to see. But Kirby Smart, Gunnar Stockton, Nate Frazier, Isaiah Canyon, man, that this offense, if Gunnar Stockton is able to take that leap and get into that next echelon of quarterbacks in college football. Look out. This Georgia team is going to be extremely scary.
Yeah, Georgia. Much like the past couple years, our nemesis has been Texas in the SEC. Georgia has been Texas's. Kirby Smart's Kirby Smart, y'all. Defense, I don't have any. They'll be fine. They're going to be fine on defense. I like what you mentioned post game with Cannon. I need to see it though. I like their tight end, Lucky, Lawson Lucky. I like him a lot. But Georgia wants to run the ball. We know that. Frazier is going to be a monster. We're going to see how that all happens. But somebody has to be that go-to for Stockton. I think I like him as a quarterback. I don't think he's not going to wow you with his numbers. He's not going to, be all that with all the hype and the stats. But he does what he needs to do. Defense, yeah. I just think Georgia's number one. I live by the mantra: to be the man, you got to beat the man, and nobody's done it recently. Talked about their schedule post game. Here it is for you: Tennessee State, Western Kentucky, Arkansas, Oklahoma at home, Vanderbilt at home, at Alabama, Auburn at home, Florida at home, at Ole Miss, Missouri at home, at South Carolina, and then, of course, Georgia Tech. So, yeah, they got a very, very favorable schedule.
Does that sound like undefeated? Does that sound like undefeated to y'all?
Yes, sir.
Easy.
Yes, sir.
Easy. That's why I need A&M to get really, really good so we can get favorable schedules from the SEC because they love to give Bama and Georgia these cushy schedules. But yeah, Georgia's Georgia, man. Let's just let it roll. Knock them off if you want, but to me, you really have, in my mind, I have three teams that could win the SEC, and the top three we mentioned: Georgia, Texas, Texas A&M. I don't see LSU or Oklahoma being in that mix. So.
Yeah, I feel like Georgia is the king of the SEC. I mean, you can't put anybody at number one ahead of Georgia when Georgia has been the SEC champion for as long as I can remember. And at 57, I ain't remembering that far back. So I think that Georgia is the team to beat in the SEC. I think that I like Gunnar Stockton. I like the pieces they got. We know Kirby Smart is going to roll out one of the best defenses in the conference. And I just think until somebody beats them, they got to come in at number one. Our man, Time, 18-188, said he has Ole Miss at number one. And I think for those of us on this panel, if they still had Weiss and still had Lane Kiffin with that team, and they probably wouldn't have lost the pieces that they lost, we probably would have had them right there at one or two ourselves. So that's a really good pick. I think when Georgia plays Oklahoma not having an offense that's going to be able to produce enough points, I don't think they beat Georgia. Anything else y'all want to add about the SEC before we go?
Well, it ought to be a fun year. But I agree with you. If Lane Kiffin was still at Ole Miss, Lane Quitten, as I like to call him too, if he was at Ole Miss still, we would probably have them higher up. And if Brian Kelly was still at LSU, we probably have them further down. Maybe we can. I wonder if they can negotiate a trade post game. You want Brian Kelly back?
Negatory.
I didn't think so.
Anything else you want to add post game before we go?
Yeah, man, it's going to be exciting football season, man, and I can't wait. I know we getting closer and closer. We're about, 3-4 weeks out? About 4 weeks out, something like that. Man, it can't come faster. That's Christmas. That's Christmas for us. We used to, when we were kids, waking up on Christmas and opening up those gifts was everything. Now that we men, this is Christmas for us. So I'm excited, and the SEC conference is definitely going to be something to watch, man. It's going to be really exciting, and I can't wait.
Yeah, well, let's finish up with prayers for CJ2K, former running back of the Tennessee Titans. He's battling ALS. Let's keep him and his family in our prayers. We thank everybody for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, hit the like button. Tune in again on Tuesday. We'll be right back at 7:45, and SEC Sean will be hosting that, and we'll be talking about the top 10 defensive linemen in the country, the interior guys, the big hogs. So make sure you tune in. Go check us out on Spotify and on Patreon, and also go check out our website, WTP Sports Dudes. And with that being said, we are out. Peace.
Peace.